What's going on? Urban anthropologist here. Quick thought that might change how you see the world. No filters, no myths. Thanks to part 4, we now understand clines, migrations, and population expansions. We can see exactly where old racial theories went wrong. Classic racial models assumed that humanity was divided into a few separate, stable biological groups. Each race was thought to have a single origin, clear boundaries, and a fixed set of traits. But that's not how human history actually unfolded. Old racial theories mistook the results of population expansions for natural divisions. When population expanded rapidly from one region, its genetic signature spread widely. Later, scientists looked at those amplified signals and assumed they represent separate races. Take the so-called Caucasoid category. It grouped together Europeans, North Africans, Middle Easterners, and South Asians. Even though these populations sit along long overlapping clines and have very different histories, what made them look like a single group wasn't racial unity. It was a series of expansions across West Eurasia that left a broad shared genetic signal. Now look at Africa, where racial theory collapses completely. Under old models, Africans were treated as a single race. But genetically, Africa contains more human diversity than the rest of the world combined. Many African populations diverged from each other long before non-Africans even existed as a group. Some African lineages are as genetically distinct from one another as non-Africans are from Africans. This alone breaks the idea that race reflects deep biological divisions. Now consider Oceanians. Under old racial theories, Oceanians were a problem. Some scholars classified them as Negroid based on superficial traits like skin color and hair texture. Others argued they belonged to a separate Australoid race entirely. These classifications disagree because racial theory wasn't based on ancestry, it was based on appearance. Modern genetics tells a very different story. Oceanian populations descend from the same out-of-Africa migration that gave rise to other Eurasians. They split early from other Eurasian populations and then experienced long periods of isolation and local adaptation. Their genetic patterns reflect early branching from the Eurasian cline, subsequent population expansions, and long isolation in Sahul. This is exactly why racial models fail. If Oceanians were truly Negroid, they would cluster genetically with African populations. They don't. If they were a separate biological race, they would show deep independent origin. They don't. What they show instead is early Eurasian ancestry shaped by isolation, something race theory was never designed to explain. The same is true for the Andamanese. Old racial theories tried to classify them based on superficial traits like skin color or stature. But genetically, the Andamanese are not African, not Australian, and not a leftover race. They represent descendants of early South and Southeast Asian populations, with roots in long isolation that racial models never accounted for. These populations aren't exceptions. They expose the flaw in the system. Old racial theories assume clear origins, fixed boundaries, and uniform groups. Modern genetics shows continuous variation, repeated mixing, and expansions that create temporary structure. Race tried to turn a moving, braided history into a frozen map. That's why racial theories keep failing. That's why they never fit everyone, and that's why they keep needing exceptions. Human diversity isn't organized into races. It's organized by migration, isolation, and growth over time.